Hi students, the topic that we are going to do today is the law commissions and the codification of law in India, part 1. Now basically this is a part of your syllabus and this is a revised topic. I'll be revising this topic back again with you people. And why this topic is important is because the law commissions came to India to codify the Indian laws, and therefore the relevance become very important. Now at present also there has been various law commissions that has been established, but the initial 4 law commissions were important that were like passed. These law commissions came during the British era, and they are important because they codified all the laws that you know today: IPC, CRPC, CPC, all these laws which you know, Transfer of Property Act, Negligence Act, all these important laws that you study today have been codified during the British era only, and by the 4 law commissions only. So I've divided this topic into 2 parts, part 1 and part 2. Part 1 includes the first 2 law commissions. So we'll be studying the first and the second law commission. And in part 2, we'll be studying the third and the fourth law commission. So this slide will be coming to you in 2 parts. Part 1, first law commission and the second law commission. And in part 2, the third law commission and the fourth law commission. So I'll be starting with my topic. Now, first of all, you people know I've told this in the class also, the Charter Act of 1833, which was enacted by the British Parliament, provided for the establishment of a law commission for consolidation and codification of Indian law. So a charter came in 1833. It is also known as the Charter of 1833. And it provided that it is important to establish a law commission that will codify and consolidate the laws in India. So for proper codification of laws, see why it was important, I'll tell you, because there was no proper laws that clearly defines what kind of punishment that needs to be awarded to a person. So for example, there was no universal system of law or uniform system of law. For example, in Madras, the crime of dacoity can be a death sentence, whereas in some other place, maybe Calcutta, the crime for dacoity can be a life imprisonment. So basically for the same crime there were same punishments that are awarded to 2 different places in India, and therefore there was no uniform legal system or uniform system of laws that were placed at that time. And therefore it became important for the Britishers to think about consolidation and codification of the Indian laws, because this only will lead to proper and uniform system of laws in India. So Charter Act of 1833 was enacted by the British Parliament, and the major purpose of the Charter Act of 1833 is to establish a law commission that will consolidate and it will codify the Indian laws. So the laws for India will be codified by the charter, by the law commissions which came under the Charter Act of 1833. And it also, this Charter Act of 1833 also provided for the addition of a 4th ordinary member to the Governor General Council. He'll be a legal expert, or I have mentioned in the class also, he'll be a law officer. So you already know the ratio at this time, till this time, was X+3. So in the Governor General Executive Council, X means the governor and 3 people were there to assist him. So initially it was X+3, but now 1 more member will be added and he will be a legal expert or a law member. So it was mentioned in this charter only, Charter of 1833 defined that there'll be addition of a 4th ordinary member, and now he'll be a legal expert. Legal expert means he'll be expert in law, and now the total figure comes to X+3 plus 1. So this will be the exact figure that will come after the addition of the 1 legal expert member. And Lord Macaulay was appointed as this 4th ordinary member, or you can say the 4th member, which is a law expert. So Lord Macaulay, he is also known as the chairman of the first law commission. So he was appointed as a member to participate in the meetings of the Governor General and Council for making of the law. So actually there were X+3. So the Governor General is there plus 3 members to assist him. But after the Charter Act of 1833, this 1 member extra has been added, and he'll be a law member, expert in law. And the first law member that has been added was Lord Macaulay. He was also the chairman of the first law commission. So we'll be studying the law commission, and there you will find that he was also the member of the first law commission. So I hope you understood Charter Act of 1833. It has provided with 2 important things. First is the codification of the law. For codification of law commission will be settled. And secondly, that a fourth ordinary member will be added to the Governor General Executive Council, and this fourth additional member will be known as a legal expert or a law member. And the first legal expert or a law member was Lord Macaulay. Now we come to the second slide. The first Law Commission. Now we'll study the first Law Commission. The first Law Commission was appointed in India in 1834. So what was the time? What was the year in which it was appointed? In 1833, I told you the charter came, and just 1 year after, in 1834, the first Law Commission was appointed, and the commission consisted of Lord T.B. Macaulay as chairman. So I've just explained you. Lord T.B. Macaulay was the chairman that was appointed, and the commission was assigned the following tasks. So the first Law Commission was given these two tasks. First is codification of penal code. Codification of penal code basically means IPC. Penal code is Indian Penal Code or IPC. The Indian Penal Code is important to give punishments. Indian Penal Code is basically criminal whenever a crime is committed. So what will be the kind of punishment that needs to be awarded? So it's a penal code. For the drafting of the Indian Penal Code, the first Law Commission was assigned this task. Second is the law applicable to non-Hindus and non-Muslims in respect of their various rights, Lex Loci report. Now I'll tell you this in detail when I'll be dealing with Lex Loci report. Just after the slide, we'll be dealing with Lex Loci report. But what actually used to happen is that you people know the civil laws for Hindus and Muslims were different. So there was a Hindu civil law, in which all the Hindu laws, Hindu Marriage Act, Adoption Act, Transfer of Property Act, all are defined. And there was a Muslim civil law in which Muslim marriage, Muslim adoption, Muslim inheritance, everything has been defined. But what about non-Hindus and non-Muslims? So basically, the people like Christians, Sikhs, they were not having any proper codified laws which they can easily, refer. And therefore, it was important for the Britishers to come up with something to come up with laws that can be applied to the non-Hindus and non-Muslims. So for example, if you are a Christian, then obviously you can, a Hindu civil code cannot be applied to you, neither a Muslim civil law can be applied to you. So what will be your status in this country, or what laws will be applicable to you, that has to be codified. And this came in the Lex Loci report, I will tell you once we shift to that slide. And third is, I forgot to write the third letter over here, codification of civil and criminal procedure law. So civil procedure law, criminal procedure law, they were not made by this, or they were not passed during the first Law Commission, but yes, the work upon them was started by the first Law Commission. So even the civil procedure code and the criminal procedure code, the work was started under the first Law Commission only. So you can see three things are very important. Three tasks were given to the first Law Commission. The first is codification of the penal code. The second is the law applicable to non-Hindus and non-Muslims. I'm writing 3 over here so that you can understand. This is the third one, codification of civil and criminal procedure code. So codification of Indian Penal Code, that was given in the hands of the first Law Commission. What will be the law that will be applicable to non-Hindus and non-Muslims? That task was given to the first Law Commission. And the codification of civil and criminal procedure code, that was also given to the first Law Commission. Now, when I talk about the codification of penal law, that means the Indian Penal Code. Now, as the system of administration of criminal justice was most unsatisfactory, so I told you the criminal justice system was majorly unsatisfactory, and the local government directed the commission to take its first step to tackle this branch of law. So basically, the local government directed the commission कि सबसे पहले इस पे काम करो. It is important to tackle this branch of law. At least punishment should be uniform. Penal code should be established. Now, the members of the commission prepared a draft penal code which they submitted to Lord Auckland. So, Lord Auckland at that time was the Governor General. So, this draft penal code was submitted to him. in 1837, but it could not be immediately enacted into the bill and had to wait up to 1860. So if you people know, your Indian Penal Code has been passed, it has been framed in 1860, but the work has been done by the First Law Commission. So basically at that time, Lord Macaulay submitted this draft penal code. He compiled everything and he submitted it to the then Governor General, that was Lord Auckland. He submitted this draft penal code to him, but at that time it could not be immediately passed, and this was passed in 1860. So there was no change that was made after this. It is purely the work of the First Law Commission under Macaulay. So the Indian Penal Code is made under Macaulay, and therefore we say that it is also known as Macaulay's Code. It is the major work that has been done by Lord Macaulay, but it was passed in 1860 only, but the work was done, completed by 1837. Now, this draft of IPC was mainly the work of Lord Macaulay, as I told you, and it is also known as Macaulay's Code. Thus, the draft code became law in 1860, and the said law is still continuing in the country for the administration of criminal justice systems. If you people know, Indian Penal Code, whenever a punishment has to be awarded, we often refer to under the IPC section so and so. So why? Because this is the criminal code that has been designed by Lord Macaulay. It is also known as Macaulay's Code. It was designed by the First Law Commission. It was passed later, but yes, it is the pure handwork of Lord Macaulay. So the first task that has been completed by the First Law Commission was the drafting of the Indian Penal Code. Now we move on to the third slide. That is the Lex Loci report. I told you the first work has been completed. That was the Indian Penal Code drafting. Now we come to the second report, which is very important. And that is the Lex Loci report. Now, what is Lex Loci report? I'll explain you by reading it only so that we go slow and you are able to understand this. Another important subject to which the commission was required to devote its attention was the problem of uncertainty of the substantial civil law. Just make this line underline by yourself. Substantial civil law which was applicable to the Christians, Anglo-Indians and Armenians. See, Armenians are the people of the Western Asian part. They are basically, you can call them Indo-Europeans. So they were also residing in India. These Armenians were also residing in India. Abhi to agar main baat batau to Armenians are very few left in India, but at that time a good number of population of Armenians were living in India. So another important subject that the commission was required to devote attention was the problem of uncertainty of the substantive civil law. Substantive civil law means what kind of civil law or what kind of substantial civil law that will be applicable to the Christians, Anglo-Indians and Armenians, because they are not Hindus and not Muslims. So what will be the civil law that will be applicable to the Christians, Anglo-Indians and Armenians? That was not defined, and this was one thing that the commission has to pay attention to it. There was no Lex Loci or law of the land. So Lex Loci means what will be the law of the land, obviously for them, for whom the Christians, Armenians and Anglo-Indians. There was no Lex Loci or a law of the land for non-Hindus and non-Muslims, or a civil law that will be applicable to the Christians, Anglo-Indians and Armenians residing in the Mofussil. So basically, majorly in the Mofussil area and the presidencies, the laws were quite similar for them. But if I talk about the Mofussil area, obviously because in the Mofussil area, the Qazis or the Pandits were there. If I talk about Mofussil Diwani Adalat, and therefore the laws for them were not properly clearly defined. So that was one problem that has to be addressed. The First Law Commission submitted its report under the chairmanship of Andrews Amos and recommended that an act should be passed making the substantive law of England the Lex Loci. Underline this line also, making the substantive law of England the Lex Loci, the law of the land outside the presidency towns and Mofussil areas, and which shall be applicable to all except Hindus and Mohammedans. So basically, the First Law Commission said in its report that what is recommended is that this act should be passed making the substantive law of England the Lex Loci. That means the substantive law of England, whatever law is being followed in England for the Christians and the Anglo-Indians, that should be applicable or that should be applied as the Lex Loci. That means that should be applicable as the law of the land for the non-Hindus and non-Muslims. So basically, if you are a non-Hindu or a non-Muslim and you're residing in India during the British rule, then the substantive law of England, whatever the law that has been followed in England for these people, will be applicable in India. So it was clearly stated that for the non-Hindus and non-Muslims, the actual law of the substantive law of England, which is also known as the Lex Loci of India now, because that will become the law of the land, will be applicable to the non-Hindus and non-Muslims. And thus the First Law Commission submitted a draft bill on 22nd May 1841 to the government. So the First Law Commission after this submitted a draft bill in 1841, and the Lex Loci report of the First Law Commission was sent to all the presidencies in India for their opinion. So basically all the presidencies of India were given these reports to consider that whether, what do you think about this report, whether the substantive law of England should be applicable or not, what are your recommendations on it. And but it was first halted by the preoccupation of Lord Auckland, and secondly it received criticism. So at that time it received a little criticism that why the law of the England should be applicable to them, why cannot we make their own civil law. So there were a little halt was made for this bill, and therefore it was not quickly passed. And first of all, the Lord Auckland was preoccupied. There were certain tasks which the Lord Auckland was given, and therefore he was preoccupied with those tasks. And secondly, it received criticism from number of presidencies. Because once that report is going to different presidencies, then obviously the presidencies can have their own opinion regarding the report, and it's had a lot of criticism. It served a lot of criticism because for the non-Hindus and non-Muslims, law of the England will be applicable is a little, it's difficult to digest for them. And therefore it received initially a little criticism, but yes, it was passed later. So at this time it was difficult to pass it. It was halted. Now, the third one I have not mentioned over here, but the third one also, for the Civil Procedure Code and the Criminal Procedure Code, the work was started. So basically, it was started from the first commission itself, the Civil Procedure Code and the Criminal Procedure Code, but they were passed on later. Now we come to the second law commission. So the second law commission, under the provisions of the Charter of 1853, the second law commission was appointed in England on 29 November 1853. So on 29 November 1853, the second law commission was appointed, and it was chaired by Sir Edward Ryan. So Sir Edward Ryan was the chairing person who chaired the second law commission, and the task that was assigned to the second law commission was basically to examine and consider the recommendations of the first law commissions and enactments proposed by it. So majorly the work that was assigned to the second law commission was to examine and consider the recommendations of the first law commission. So whatever the first law commissions recommended, that needs to be examined by the second law commission. So it has recommended, first of all, the draft IPC has been submitted by the first law commission. Lex Loci report came in this commission under the first law commission. So the major work of the second commission was to examine and consider whatever the report that has been submitted by the first law commission. So what are the reports? The second law commission submitted 4 reports. So when it was during its tenure only, it submitted 4 reports, and the first report was submitted in 1855, second, third and fourth reports were submitted in 1856. So you can see that this commission came in 1853 until 1856. It has prepared 4 reports, and after this there was this commission ended. So this commission was for 3 years, and in 3 years only it has submitted 4 major reports. Now the first report is, in the first report, the commission submitted a plan for reforms in judiciary and in courts procedure. So the first report, the commission submitted a detailed plan for reforms in judiciary and in courts procedure. So basically said that what should be the reforms that should be initiated in the judiciary. See, judiciary required reforms because basically the entire system of judiciary was working in the old procedure according to the old laws, and therefore it was very important for the judiciary to be reformed, and even the court procedures, that what should be the proceedings in the court and everything needs reform. So basically under the first report, the second law commission submitted that it is very much required to have reforms in the judiciary and the court proceedings. In the second report, the law commission stated it agreed with the Lex Loci report of the first law commission, and it expressed the firm view that no attempt should be made to codify the personal laws of Hindus and Muslims. So you should understand this thing. It gave it a clear impression to the second law commission that we should not tamper with the Hindu and Muslim laws that are there. That means no uniform civil laws will be there for the Hindus and Muslims. If there are personal laws for Hindus and Muslims, that is very much welcome. Nothing should be done to tamper it. Nothing should be done to change it. But if I talk about the non-Hindus and non-Muslims, then obviously the Lex Loci report is something that even the second law commission agreed with. So the second law commission agreed that whatever has been recommended by the first law commission, which is known as the Lex Loci report, the law of the land for the non-Hindus and non-Muslims, that is perfectly fine, and we can actually apply that for the non-Hindus and non-Muslims. But it clearly stated that no attempt should be made to codify the personal laws of Hindus and Muslims, because they are separated. No attempt should be made to codify their laws into a uniform civil law, which we today call it as uniform civil code. There is no need to do that. If they are different, let them be different, because this will again be a problem for us only. So he understood, the second law commission understood that there's no need to tamper with it, the civil laws for Hindus and Muslims. And then the third and the fourth report, it submitted that there's a need to amalgamate the Supreme Court and the Sadar courts and a uniform civil code of civil and criminal procedure applicable both to the high courts to be formed by that amalgamation. So it suggested that the Supreme Court and the Sadar courts which are there, like Supreme Court at Calcutta was there, it was established in 1774, I told you, and there were Sadar courts also. Sadar Diwani Adalat, Sadar Nizamat Adalat were there. So all these needs to be amalgamated. You people know amalgamation is basically like combining all of them, combining the Supreme Court and the Sadar Adalats, and a uniform system of judiciary should be made. And basically, if you people know, after that in 1861, like this commission was till 1856, in 1861, the High Court Act was passed, and after that, the High Courts became an important figure. So after this, you people know, the Supreme Courts and the Sadar Adalats were actually amalgamated, and High Courts came into functions. High Court at Calcutta, Madras, and Bombay was established. So basically, these were the 4 reports that has been submitted by the second law commission. I'll again repeat. In the first report, the second law commission stated that the need to reform the judiciary and the court proceedings. In the second report, the second law commission agreed with the Lex Loci report, and it expressed its firm view that there should be no attempt that should be made to codify the personal laws of Hindus and Muslims. And in the third and the fourth report, it stated that there is a need to amalgamate the Supreme Court at Calcutta, which was created in 1774, and the Sadar Adalats, and a uniform system should be made in which there will be a single judicial proceedings, a single judicial court that will be known as the High Court. So High Court was constituted in 1861, if you people know, after the second law commission. Now we move on to the achievements of the second law commission. So what are the achievements that have been made by the second law commission? If you can clearly state, then the penal code proposed by Macaulay was taken up, revised, and finally passed in the year 1860. So I told you that during the period of Macaulay, or during the first law commission, the IPC was not able to be passed, but obviously it was created by Macaulay. In the first law commission itself, the entire draft was made, it was taken up, the matter was taken up, revised, the matter was revised, and finally in 1860 the Indian Penal Code came into function. It was passed in 1860 during the time of the second law commission itself. Second is codes of civil procedure and criminal procedure were passed in the year 1859 and 1861 respectively. I told you the major part of the work has been done under the first law commission. The work in civil procedure code and criminal procedure code started by the first law commission, but it was actually passed in 1859, the civil procedure code, and 1861, the criminal procedure code. And third is the draft on the law of limitation as submitted by the first law commission was also taken up and passed into law in 1859. So by the first law commission, there was a draft on the law of limitation. There is a law of limitation, you might be knowing better than me. So law of limitation, that draft was also submitted by the first law commission, but that was also not being able to passed by the first law commission. But this law of limitation was actually passed in 1859 by the second law commission. So these are the three important things that has been the achievements made by the second law commission. So I hope you've understood the first two law commissions. The first law commission under Lord Macaulay, and the second law commission that came under Sir Edward Ryan. So all the features, what are there, what are the reports, what are the recommendations, what are the achievements, you should be knowing that. These are the first two law commission. See, this question is important in the sense it can come as a 20-mark question, that what do you understand by codification of law, and explain the codification of the law that has been taken place during the British era. So British era mein, there are 4 law commissions that have come, and you have to write all the 4 law commissions. So first two I have discussed with you people. The first law commission, what are the recommendations? It created IPC, it drafted IPC, and it recommended for a lex loci for non-Hindus and non-Muslim. Second, the second law commission, there are 4 reports that has been submitted. First is to reform the judiciary. Second, it agreed with the lex loci that should be applicable for non-Hindus and non-Muslims. And the third and the fourth talks about amalgamation of Supreme Court and other courts into a single tier of judiciary, that is the High Court, that were constituted in 1861. So these are the recommendations of the first and the second law commission. You should be knowing that. Third and the fourth we'll be dealing in the next class, and I hope you're clear with this class. In case of any problem, in case of any confusion, obviously you can mail me. My mail ID is swati.saxena@alc.edu.in. Now I'm also asking you people, if you want me to revise any other topic that you want me to revise again, I can revise with you people. But these are the topics that I've already explained in the class, and revising whatever I'm thinking is important. So I've revised the administration of justice in Bengal, Madras, and Calcutta with you people, that I've already completed way earlier. Then I revised the high courts. Then I revised I'll be revising the Privy Council with you people. I have revised the law commissions. I have revised the Supreme Court of India. I have revised the High Court also. After this, all the topics I have covered with you in the online lectures only. We have covered the reforms which are initiated by William Bentinck, Lord Cornwallis, Warren Hastings. Then I started with all the acts that are there. Then I started with what has been the position of native states and British paramountcy. We have completed the codification of the entire constitution. So that everything has been dealt by me. The entire syllabus has been covered now. If you find any doubts anywhere, you can obviously mail me, and I'll be reverting it to you people. Thank you so much. I hope you've understood the lecture.